And we're back.
We're back.
Welcome.
Welcome.
I appreciate how nervous you get at the start of every single podcast that we do.
Yes, because it's weird because I have this thing in my face.
Like you have a face?
Well, I have, and the microphone, and then it's like...
Like it's very official.
It's Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do. So I saw someone had posted that a couple, I guess, like... 06, as crazy as it was when that movie came out, like August of 06. So someone had just posted, it's like this whatever anniversary, 15 or...
Yeah, it's been 15 years since Ricky Bobby took the NASCAR world by storm.
It's such a good movie.
I would agree.
What happened to like good comedies? Because, okay, so do you have a list of like your top 5 favorite movies? Do you know?
Like top 5 favorite movies of all time or like comedies?
Your most favorite movie of all time is Nightmare Before Christmas.
It's up there for sure.
It's for sure your favorite movie. You can't help but talk about it. And if it's on, you get sucked in whenever the boys bring it up. You said that Jack was named after Jack Skellington.
I also told him he was named after Jack Sparrow and Jack Bauer.
And Jack Reacher.
There's
and Baby Jack.
Yeah, there's a lot of kick-ass Jacks. So, yeah, that's easy.
Okay. What are your top 5 favorite movies?
I was not prepared for this. I don't know.
I know.
You go.
I think my favorite movie of all time is probably Avengers Endgame. Because it's the most incredible superhero movie ever like in the history of the world.
I like it.
Wonderful.
Right.
But for comedy, I'd say Anchorman is probably my number 2. Yeah. Just because of the sheer amount of quotes that come out of that movie. Yeah,
one-liners. I feel like Dodgeball's up there as far as like one-liners.
But for sure, not Talladega. So I was, okay, if we're doing my top 5, so probably Endgame.
Yeah.
Anchorman. Dirty Dancing. And Steel Magnolias. Probably.
That's a very
3 and 4.
It's a very eclectic grouping so far.
And then the Boondock Saints. So like 5. Those are my top 5.
I love it.
But I think Dirty Dancing, like if you've ever watched, everyone's seen Dirty Dancing and Steel Magnolias. They're not phenomenal movies in any way, shape, or form. But they were like those.
I think people will fight you over the Dirty Dancing one. Steel Magnolias I would get of being like kind of more obscure. But like Dirty Dancing.
Sally Field, Olympia Dukakis, Julia Roberts, like all the people.
Yeah.
In that movie. There's good one-liners in there as well. But I think those were just the ones that were on repeat. Because, of course, back in the day when you had a VHS tape.
Yeah.
And first of all, I think that we only owned maybe, like max, 5 to 7 actual VHSs that like were purchased.
Yeah.
Every other VHS tape that we had in our home was recorded off TV.
Sure.
Every single one. But Steel Magnolias and Dirty Dancing were... Dirty Dancing we owned. Steel Magnolias was recorded, but I played them all the time. So there's like a deep, deep foundational love for those. And then Boondock Saints. I loved Boondock Saints. But anyway, that's my top 5. But Talladega Nights is for sure in my top 10.
Right.
So, and when it comes to, and like Step Brothers was awesome, and that even came out a little bit later too.
Yeah, well, definitely.
Put your nut set on my drum set.
Oh yeah, there's tons.
But it's just,
this house is a prison.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there's no more good comedies. Like there was a period in like the early 2000s where they were just busting out these fantastic comedies.
Yeah.
And then it just died.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is the world too sad now?
I think the world takes itself too seriously. That's for sure.
Where they can't come out with this shit now.
And it gets talked about a lot where it's like it's woke culture and comedy don't mix.
Yeah.
Like political correctness and wokeness and comedy are always at odds with each other.
Everybody needs.
Oh, but without a doubt. Like the comedian, because like if you listen to the Joe Rogan experience, right? Joe Rogan's podcast he touches on it a lot because he interviews so many comedians.
Yeah.
Right. He'll interview everybody that he is like personally interested in learning more about or whatever. But because he interviews so many comedians, because he wants to give them a platform, they oftentimes are talking about the fact that like the comedian is what is like the most important individual in a community or like within society.
That's an interesting perspective, but would be absolutely necessary
Because they call out the bullshit or they identify things quick. Like it's the importance of a comedian is that it's like nothing is sacred.
Yeah.
So you immediately can call out when people are being overly shitty or someone's trying to be like overly pompous or disingenuous. Comedians come in and immediately jump in.
I understand that.
And the fact is that people like so that's like comedy. I don't know. There's so many things where you question like movies that were late 90s movies or early 2000 movies about like being capable to be made now. Like comedies that could not have been made. So like Tropic Thunder is probably one of my favorite movies.
You do love Tropic Thunder.
I would say Tropic because it's the
got
perfect
nominated for
movie. Yes. I mean, that's what makes it so awesome, right? So Robert Downey Jr., who is an American, plays an Australian who is playing
a black
man.
It's fantastic.
And he legit got nominated for the Academy Awards. That's when you knew, like,
this is a rough year.
Something like it's, and so for me, Tropic Thunder, I really, really like. I couldn't tell you like what my top 5 favorite movies are because the thing is, like, the movies that are what you named off were movies that Steel Magnolias or Dirty Dancing were like movies that were on repeat, that were favorites from when you were a kid, and so for me, like movies that made like my childhood, that made like major waves when I was a kid, were the big ones. Because we were so into movies. So it was like Jaws changed everything when I was a kid. I never could swim in a body of water comfortable again. And I watched Jaws a ton. And like E.T. was huge. Jurassic Park. Like these were movies. And the reason why those are so specific, those are all made by Universal. Because we went to Universal Studios. Like, because we went there so often. So a lot of these movies are super heavily ingrained, like in my psyche of like, oh, that was Back to the Future. Like, we watched Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3 all the time.
What does that sound?
It's the chair.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying not to move. But those were huge movies.
Fully seen Back to the Future.
I know there's a number of movies that cause me pain when you say that. When you say that out loud.
Well, okay. Can I explain briefly in a very succinct manner?
Go.
Yes. Okay.
I'm looking at the clock.
Okay, so my parents don't spend money on anything.
Well, yeah.
And again, talking about going to the movies, is there are my dad drug us to a Star Wars showing at like 11 o'clock at night one night, and it was the worst. And I fell asleep in 5 minutes, and I never saw Star Wars since. I have since seen it, of course, since being married to you and having the boys, and I do enjoy it.
Right.
But I saw Star Wars. We saw Independence Day. And my mom took us to see Beauty and the Beast and Pocahontas. That legit is the only time in working memory that I remember going to the movies, like with my parents.
Right.
So, and again, anything that we watched, it better have been on, like, recorded on a VHS tape.
Yeah.
Because in cable back in the day, and I've told you this a million times, is that for people that didn't live in the land of wealth and privilege like yourself, and had access to all the things all the time, is Disney Channel around Christmas time would do like a 2-month, 3-month promotional where it was awesome because it was like this lady straight from 1984 that had like the big ass perm and the giant glasses, and she had her little microphone headset on and just happily talking to you on the phone where it's
while
like,
she's signing people up for the Disney Channel.
Yes. Yeah. So it's like, if we're going to give you a little taste of what the Disney Channel is like. If you would like to pay a whole lot of money to us, call now.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like what Henry's doing now. Is, Mom, have you heard of Disney World? There's like a place. But I used to do that to my mom. Mom, there's a whole channel that only plays like super cool Disney movies. But that was the only time I ever got to see Mickey Mouse Clubhouse when I was a kid.
The Musketeer Club.
It was called Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
No.
Or the Mickey Mouse Club.
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse Club, yeah.
Yeah, and they were the Musketeers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like Justin Timberlake and Britney and all them. That was the time period.
Mm-hmm.
But if it wasn't, like, that's when we recorded any of our Disney movies, was during that 2-month period. I watched a lot of TV from, like, November to January.
Yeah.
But after that, we never went anywhere. So there's a lot of movies that are, I think, foundational and, like, paramount for our childhood, and Back to the Future is one of them, and I have never fully seen it. Same with Sandlot. Is like, I keep wanting. Mike is really in. We just watched A League of Their Own, which is in my top 10 list as well.
Right.
But he's really been into wanting to watch baseball movies, of course. And I'm like, oh, there's The Sandlot. He's like, what's it about? And I'm like, I don't actually know. It was like.
There are some quintessential, like, 90s kids movies that you have not seen. Mm-hmm. And that's what's surprising. Because whether you saw it in the theaters or not is irrelevant. Like, these were movies that were on, like, TNT.
Yeah, no.
Like, they were playing, you know, on repeat, TBS and all that kind of stuff. It would be like a 90s kid and being like, what's Family Matters? And you're like, where were you? Like, where, like, yeah.
TGIF was big time, man. You get home from school and, like, you prep for the night.
Yeah.
To watch TV.
But that's what's crazy is, like, you hear a lot of folks talk about, like, how much media is consumed by kids today. And it's like, oh, it's so high. It's like, there was a lot of TV getting watched.
Yeah. I think, of course, the difference is you can't take it with you.
Right. Now they can take it with them and it's, like, customized to the kid and they can choose or whatever. But, like, it was... Like in Step Brothers was like, what are you guys watching? And, like, he's watching Cops. Mm-hmm. Like, that was a family event.
Yeah. WWE and Cops were family
and
shows.
Roseanne.
And Roseanne were like the whole family sitting around. And sports for us. Because I grew up in Chicago, so. And
we not so much like we were just in Southern California, so we had the Lakers and stuff, but that was the
everybody
heyday of
watched
the Bulls. Right.
But, like, we were there. I mean, and I've told people this a lot because they're like, oh, Chicago, like, you must be Bears fan, you must be Bulls fan. I'm like, yes. And whether you were or not, I knew jack shit about football when I was a kid. Again, if people talk about it, it's like, yes, I went to Soldier Field all the time. My memories of Soldier Field as a child were being wrapped in a snowsuit, and I would get a hot chocolate if I behaved.
Right, being little, but your experiences are so different.
I didn't know jack shit about football, but I can tell you about Refrigerator Perry, and I can tell you about Walter Payton, because it was just, they were mythical figures like Santa Claus. But with the Bulls specifically, is I grew up during the right time period, so I got to go to the United Center, and you get to watch Jordan and Pippen and Rodman play together, and Luke Longley and Steve Kerr and B.J. Armstrong and all, know
all the names.
I know all the names. Grant Horace, all these people, because sports back then too it still is a form of entertainment, but it was a different level of.
And I think it comes back to where, like, back in the day there was only so many channels on TV.
Yeah. And
it wasn't like we're not that old for, like, that being our reality. But I think it just was like you didn't have the opportunity to watch, like, pool.
And that's what's
like,
crazy.
There were so many things now that you can watch.
And that's what's crazy too, is growing up as well. It's why, remember when you and I were first married, and, like, every night we would have dinner and we would watch Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, and then we'd go to Dairy Queen and get a Blizzard.
That's when we were up here by ourselves. So
yes,
that's when we, like,
and we had one child.
Yeah.
But it was a thing, like, as a kid, because I tried to watch, and Jack actually liked it. We watched Wheel of Fortune because he's good with letters, and he was trying to guess.
Yeah.
But for everyone else, it's like, what is this bullshit?
Why are we watching this?
Yes, but it's like, as a kid, you just learned to watch what your parents watched. Because also there weren't that, again, you may be different because of you're wealthy. You had a TV in your room. Like, that was not a thing until maybe I was in high school.
Yeah, we didn't have TVs in our room till we were older, but where you're driving is like, no, there wasn't like...
There was like the living room with the TV.
But it never was okay to be like, go in the other room and watch what you want to watch.
No.
Like, this is family time. We're watching TV. That was family time.
Yeah. But again, cops and WWE or... sports that's how I think I learned to love sports. Is it was never explained to me. Like, I played basketball and I played volleyball, right? So I had a little bit of knowledge of basketball, but watching football or watching, like, I hated watching baseball growing up because there was the Sox and the Cubs, and it's the most boring shit on earth. But
you have to really understand a whole bunch about the sport to appreciate what you're watching.
Yeah, I'm as Michael and the boys are in it, I'm starting to enjoy baseball more because I can understand things more. But even just not having a foundation of what anything is... Like Roseanne, Roseanne was funny, and they always had laugh reels, so it's like you were ingrained to learn.
They also were filmed in front of a live audience,
right?
That had the applause sign, or laugh sign, so it was forced laughter, but from a studio audience.
Yes,
yeah.
But
Home Improvement.
Yes.
Yeah, like, see, there's some, like, and that's where that's easy. Like, TV shows, you could tell it's like way more prevalent.
Yes,
because everybody had that same shared experience.
But it wasn't. Again, I think that for anybody our age, it's like, yes, these shows, like, I loved them. But if you've ever watched Roseanne now as an adult, it's like, God, these are like, this is some like deep shit.
Yeah.
And what was awesome about Roseanne now as an adult is it was one of the few shows that was just like regular people dealing with like regular shit.
Yeah, King of Queens did not exist. Like, a lot of the shows that Everybody Loves Raymond, like, a lot of shows took that piece, that model of like a regular family living in the life. But that was Roseanne, definitely was the first one.
There's like some deep shit that for sure as a kid I didn't get, but it just, this is what we watched as a family.
Yeah.
So there's that ingrained level of love for it.
Yeah.
Because this is what we watched.
Gladiator is up there for me.
That was
as far as shows that I watched, like movies that I watched a lot of times. I'm not talking about, but see, you're now splitting hairs between movies that you saw when you were a kid that are on your top 5 movies of all time, like top 5 movies. I'm thinking about like movies that I watched a lot, and I could keep. But
that's what's crazy to me, and it's like you're only 2 years younger than me. But I feel like sometimes we lived in different decades. And I don't know if it's just our family differences or if it's where you grew up, where the things that you saw, like your dad went to the movie premiere for Gladiator, didn't he?
With me.
With you. That's probably why that's one of your, but for us, it's like.
Yeah, but I went to the Green Mile as well.
Yeah.
This is a really sad fucking movie. Like that doesn't make my top 5 movies of all time.
Know,
but I hear what you're saying.
The idea of going to a movie premiere is insane. But like what I'm saying is.
But I don't say it pretentious. You take everything pretentiously.
Because that's not a regular thing.
Well, who cares? I'm not sharing those stories.
Like, yeah, my first car when I was 16
I don't share those stories. I don't say those things.
I know you don't do it pretentiously, but the fact that it
pull it out pretentious.
No, because the fact that it comes out at all, you're not doing it pretentiously.
I didn't say it.
You can't say those things in public because you're going to get punched.
And I didn't, and you did. Anyway. I don't say I like The Gladiator because I got to meet all the actors and it was super cool.
Okay.
I say I like The Gladiator because I watched the movie a lot.
Russell Crowe?
Russell Crowe was the only guy that wasn't there.
Of course.
But the big Germanic dude, met him.
Joaquin Phoenix?
That is not a large Germanic person.
No, but did you? I know.
Joaquin Phoenix and Russell Crowe were not there.
Well, then what was the point?
I don't know. Got to meet the director. That was sweet.
Yeah.
Did a Q&A with the director afterwards.
That's cool.
It was super cool.
But anyway, again, I don't know if it's just like we were behind in Northwest Indiana or if it was just the way my family was or whatever. Sure. But it was like, there are so many 80s references that I'm like, oh, this, and you're just like, what? Like soft 80s rock, like is my jam. And it's not, because I was born in 86. But between like the late 80s and early 90s is where I live when I think of my childhood. And for you, it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, who are these people?
It had been just, there's a big difference of like, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But I also like what you're exposed to as a kid is relied heavily upon like your parents.
And
So
I
the
think,
music,
and again, just the area. It's just we were behind.
yeah,
It's like
yeah, but like it's
like we were
like let's use like examples. Like I hear some, and it is I was an '88 baby.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're '86,
Mm-hmm.
but the difference also was that like my dad was a big fan of. So go with music. Like he was a big fan of the British invasion.
Mm-hmm.
So 1960s
Mm-hmm.
of the Beatles, the Who, right? Like all the way through the Rolling Stones, like those bands is what dominated. And then the bands were AC/DC and Aerosmith. It was rock bands, or back then was metal. That's what I was exposed to as a kid. So Van Halen, and then so for me, like in my formidable years of like trying to figure out like what I liked, and then my friends, there was never like Prince was not on the menu, but there are so many people. It was like Michael Jackson and Prince,
mm-hmm.
and the pop music. It was just, and Prince obviously slays and has all these things that are amazing about him. But I was also like, it seems like everyone that I know that's from like Wisconsin, the Dakotas, mm-hmm. Minnesota, especially obviously like those areas where you're from, mm-hmm. it's like Prince was mm-hmm. huge.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And Prince was not for me where I was in Southern California. It doesn't mean that it wasn't, but like Purple Rain was missed on me. Yeah. And it also could just come down to like, it's my dad just didn't have it in the house. Now my dad has a very eclectic, like enjoyment of music. He enjoys music for all over the place. And for me, it wasn't that. Like there was definitely a time period where like when I hit like 6th or 7th grade, if it was made much later than like maybe 90, maybe like past Nirvana, mm-hmm. I didn't listen to it. I didn't know it existed. Mm. Like I was stayed such in a realm of music that was like only in those time periods. It wasn't until I started getting introduced to more new age or modern like rock music was like as I heard a song that was inside of like a movie soundtrack.
Yeah, I get
like I just wasn't exposed to it.
But in music, God, this episode is just gonna be just reminiscing apparently, but it's with music too. Is that's what you do as a kid? Is like you'd hear a song from a soundtrack, mm-hmm. but and there were singles, like you could buy the single. But it was, you would pick a song and then you'd buy the whole album to listen to that song.
For sure.
And that is so lost now.
Oh, yeah. There was, no.
Do music. Well, I saw it the other day in Target, like Billie Eilish, like I guess vinyl's coming back.
Oh, yeah. It's been slowly kind of picking up. You have some bands that are like only releasing on vinyl.
Yeah, but she had mm-hmm. something on vinyl. And I'm like, is this just the one song? Because it's like, kids now, the idea of like having an album, because you would buy the CD for the one song that was popular, mm-hmm. and then you just learn all the other songs.
Oh yeah.
But I think that like the Spice Girls, everyone had like the Spice Girls CD. Mm-hmm. So it's like you'd buy it for Wannabe, and then I'm pretty sure I could sing every single Spice Girls song, because when you get it as well, is you don't stop listening to it.
No, you listen to it on repeat. And not only that, you know what song's coming next, so you can do the whole album. Like from start to finish. Like that was for me, like the very first album I ever bought was Sublime's album, self-named album, where it has the Sublime, mm-hmm. that's the tattoo on the original singer's upper back that says Sublime in like Old English lettering. And for sure, that was an album where I had heard the one song. Mm-hmm. And like I can do that whole album for sure from start to finish because you listen to it so much on repeat.
What's crazy about the Titanic soundtrack?
Good God.
Titanic's probably in my top.
For sure.
Because I saw.
And Willow. which sucks ass.
Willow's not my top 10. I saw Willow. I liked Willow.
It was stupid.
I haven't seen it since adulthood.
You did. You watched it with me. You forced me to watch it.
I don't recall this.
Yeah, because you suppressed that. Bunch of fucking midgets running around.
You can't say that.
Midget.
Okay.
Yeah. No, listen, there's midgets and dwarfs and stuff inside of Wizard of Oz, and that movie's awesome.
It is.
Willow sucks.
Our boys have not seen The Wizard of Oz.
Austin Powers also has a midget. Very funny movies.
Yes. Yes.
Willow sucks ass.
Okay.
Midgets don't ruin that movie. It just sucks.
Anyway.
Continue. So Titanic, my heart will go on.
I was at the right, because I was like, what, 12,
Yeah.
13? So I was at the right age. I saw the movie 7 times in the theaters.
Jesus.
Not with my parents.
Right.
Again,
You
it was like
you
the
made
4 movies.
You made a solid, the 4 movies
7
with
times
parents.
in
That's
the
pretty
theaters.
impressive.
And then when we bought it, it was on VHS, and it had to have 2 tapes.
That's
because
awesome.
it was 3.5. So it was like you'd watch the 1 tape, and then it stopped, and you have to put in the 2nd tape.
That's super awesome.
But I bought the soundtrack because I was so obsessed with Titanic.
Sure.
Because I also like, I love like historical fiction is probably my favorite genre and always has been like growing up. But it's
Right.
like if you ask my favorite book, and this is not fiction, but it's Night.
Yeah.
By Elie Wiesel.
Mm-hmm.
I love anything that ties in.
Such
like,
a happy ending on that book.
I know. Of like real life events with people's stories. I love it. And so, and of course, Leo DiCaprio is a 13-year-old girl.
Well, he looked like a 13-year-old girl.
He did.
So it was
But it was
perfect.
Like, it was one of these numbers.
Oh, yeah. JTT and Leo, man.
Oh, yeah. JTT, I won a poster of at the county fair.
Oh, yeah.
Did you tell? You need to tell the people the story of what you won me on. We went to the Watermelon Festival.
Yeah, so we're dating.
Yeah.
I think we're still dating within that 3-week window of dating and not
I think
engaged.
this is date like number 3.
Yeah.
Went to the Watermelon Festival.
In like Leesburg, Florida, or whatever
Alachua.
it was. Was it Alachua?
Yeah.
and so there's the Watermelon Festival, and I knew exactly how to really impress you. Was that I saw one of the Carney booths, which was dart throwing, and we had a dartboard in our house. So I'm like, that's easy. And so I had my eye on this really nice 8x10.
Reba McEntire.
Oh, yeah. Hair super teased out.
Yeah.
Won that shit. There you are, my lady. Here's your Reba. We had that up in the house.
We did.
Until we moved.
Yes, we did. And then I was like, this is not... Like, you kept it.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, we are now moving. It's time to...
We kept it because obviously that's what sealed the deal.
Apparently.
You're like,
yep.
Oh, this is the guy.
That's absolutely correct.
Like, if a need arises, all he needs is 3 darts, and he can do anything.
Yep. But, so...
So you got the of Leo.
No,
poster.
of JTT at the county fair.
Me.
But yeah, for sure. Leo, as a 13-year-old girl, was like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful.
Totally.
But I bought everything Titanic related. So like I read all the books.
Sure.
And so, but I bought, going back to music, is I bought the soundtrack. And of course, My Heart Will Go On is on there.
Yeah.
And then it's 18 songs of just instrumental music.
Yeah, it's like Celtic music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
But back as a kid, it didn't matter.
No.
And I don't know if like iPods killed that.
Yes.
Is that what?
100%. Yeah, because once you then had the MP3 player, right? So instead of having one album in your Walkman, right, and you're walking around, and you have one CD that's just huge, right, and then it had like the shock protection, so like it wouldn't jiggle and skip and then freeze.
Only for rich people. Again,
I'm talking about the progression. It starts from
yes.
You have the cassette, like you only have the Walkman that's with cassettes, and then went to CDs, and then eventually got the shock, and then the next step was there were mini discs for a minute, but then the next thing is then MP3s, and MP3s changed the game because now you could be like, wait, I can have 10 CDs, and it's this big.
But what's great? It's singles. So their generation, the boys' generation, it's songs. I just want songs. There is no idea of an album.
There's no concept of buying music.
That's true.
Because you can listen to full albums on YouTube.
When did Napster come out?
Same when we were little.
Because for sure,
Late
like
90s.
when you could burn your own CDs, that changed the game as well.
Oh, yeah. 100%. That changed everything.
You could destroy a brand new computer, though, with all, like, the malware.
Oh, yeah. LimeWire and...
In, like, half a day.
Yeah. But that's where it really started, to where you now hear a song, and then you went after and got that song.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now it's like...
And then it's a CD just full of songs. But I remember that being, like... Because I also...
Well, mixtapes had been forever, right? The difference is in order to pirate music, you then had to record it off of the radio.
Yeah. But
so
that's
you sit and wait and then record that one song.
In Chicago, there was a station called B96, which was like the pop rap station. Like they played like Biggie Smalls and Puff Daddy and like actual rap music. But it was what everybody that was cool listened to. And if you had a super cool bus driver, she'd put on B96.
That's awesome.
Yes. But it was like the 9 at 9. So it was like the 9 most wanted songs they would play at 9 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
And to get to number 1, you would it would be like a 30, 45 minute window.
Yep.
And you would sit. Like I remember like sitting and waiting and learning what the 9 were. Like you'd have to learn what they were to determine when yours was going to come up. And like have the cassette in the boombox, ready to hit play.
Did you ever call into radio stations to request a song?
No.
Oh, I did that multiple times.
No.
Oh, yeah. Like calling, get your request in. Because that's how, like, okay, I know I got my request in. Like, my song is coming.
No, we knew with the 9 at 9. And I was not the only, like, I was not a weirdo. Like, this was a regular thing that the kids did.
Yes.
Because you knew the 9 at 9 that these songs were going to be played. I remember, like, I was waiting for, like, Old Dirty Bastard. Come on.
Okay.
But it's like, you have your 2 fingers, like, ready.
Play record. Yeah.
On the cassette. All that. But I miss the idea. Because I don't like music.
You don't?
No.
Because you're soulless.
There's something wrong.
Correct.
Like, especially because I listen to music all the time. And what's growing up, which also strange, since this is an episode about reminiscing, is I remember being in the car and there were 2, like my dad, so classic rock, I know almost every word to almost every classic rock song that exists from probably the late 60s through the 70s.
A very specific branch of rock, yes.
I said classic rock?
No.
Yes.
You couldn't do Rolling Stone songs. Nor the Beatles.
For sure.
You for sure cannot do the Stones. You probably can't do the Who or Led Zeppelin.
I'm massively offended right now.
You should be.
You've offended me deeply.
Because I've heard some songs. I know what bands that you listen to. Like, you know bands like 38 Special. Like, you know those.
Boston.
For sure. I'm not saying that that it's not bad. I'm saying that bands that stayed very specifically, either that was heavily blues related or rock related or toyed with metal, you for sure don't have that area. And I'm not saying you don't have it. I'm saying for sure it's a certain genre.
So back then, and I think my dad still has it. It would be interesting to go in their shed and see. Is my dad had, before the boombox, like whatever version of the boombox was in the late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
He had, and it had like the long antenna that you have to pull up.
Yeah.
So it was whatever was on the radio. I guess I should specify.
Yeah.
Is any song. So your dad was heavily into your family. I'm not saying it's weird. Your family is weird, but like your dad was heavily into albums and the whole 9 and going deep.
For sure. That's what he spent all his money on.
Right. And our family was just whatever's on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
But, bless you.
Thank you.
So it's any of those songs from that generation that were played on the radio that were a classic rock song.
Yeah.
I know. And I know deeply from my dad. From my mom, when we were driving in the car, when I was with my mom, she would play the oldies, and the oldies back then were songs from the 50s and maybe early 60s.
That's awesome.
We still have a station, it's 101.3 here in Waynesboro, that I will turn on every now and then.
Yeah.
That plays that generation of music. But if you go to like the oldies or like the quote unquote classics now, it's music.
80s and 90s.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Classic. Yep.
And
I remember it was really funky when Nirvana started popping up on the classic rock
Yes.
station. You're like, wait.
This is not okay.
Yeah.
But what was the point? That's what I listened to. So I listened to music as a kid, and like
Right.
I have
Yeah, the soundtracks of your childhood for sure.
Right. And I played in the band.
Yeah.
So like Michael has joined the band, and it fills my heart with joy and happiness.
Yeah, because essentially he's like right around the exact same instrument you were.
Yes. So it's first of all, so I played the clarinet, and I played from 7th grade through high school. And I really enjoyed it. And I was good at it. There was
You were good enough that you did some paid gigs in high school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was fun. But I like there was and I don't know if I loved it so much because I'm super, super competitive. Incredibly competitive.
Right, so you had to be first chair.
So I had to be first chair.
Yeah.
And it became the game. I think the furthest I ever moved down is there were the top 3 chairs is what we had a trio, and that's what we did paid gigs with. But so the lowest I ever got was 3rd chair.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. I enjoyed the playing of it. For sure, when you are playing an instrument, it's different, of course, than listening to it for a million different reasons. But one of those is the expression of it, right? And the ability to feel, and how you will, when you know what's coming, how you play it is different from the next person.
Yeah, it's next level of playing music.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I loved my band experience. I loved everything about it. And Michael is now joining, and I play the clarinet. I'm like, dude, you can play the clarinet and it'll be awesome. And it's like, no, A, because you played it, so I'm not going to play it, and B, because I'm not a girl. And like for sure he's right, because it's what they see, right? So it's our flutists were all girls. I don't think there was a single boy. And there was always, because when we were in band, it was you had to play clarinet if you wanted to play sax, because everybody wants to play sax, right?
Right.
So there was over 20 clarinetists. And there were 2 boys. One of them moved to the bassoon, and one of them moved to the oboe. And that was it. So it was...
So you ended up having no one playing sax?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I guess that's true. Is there were then 4 sax players. There was 2 altos, a tenor, and a bari.
Right.
And 2 of them were boys. So, but it was I'm not playing the clarinet because that's for girls.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, then play the sax. And he's, all these different things. He wants to do something different just because I said it. But
of course,
it's long story short is he did his tryout, and I had him you could try out on trombone, trumpet, sax, flute, and clarinet. And because that's all that you can start with is like the wind instruments when you're in 6th grade. And then he goes, I actually felt the strongest on clarinet. So like this idea that was completely out of his brain is now like, I kind of like this. But he chose alto with an alternate in clarinet. But I cried in the band room.
Yeah, so he chose saxophone.
He chose saxophone with an alternate as clarinet.
Right.
But I was so proud of him, because it's just music was...
Well, also what made you excited was like when so the way you explained the story to me was like they had to go and they attempted to play a note on each of the instruments.
Yes.
And so he ended up getting a very strong sound out of the saxophone.
And the clarinet.
Right.
And it took me, because my parents had 0 musical knowledge at all.
Right.
I just remember that it's like, I want to join the band. And my parents were like, this is stupid. You shouldn't do this because this is for losers and nerds. And I did it. And then my dad had to, so you can rent your instrument and all this. And again, my parents didn't spend money on anything. So my clarinet cost me $500. And the only reason I remember is because my dad shoved that shit down my throat of like, if you quit, I will
Yeah.
murder you because this is so expensive and a ridiculous waste of time.
Right.
But for sure I ended up loving it.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's cool. It's cool that it ended up being like his strongest sounds ended up kind of being your thing anyway.
but what's crazy is that I just sold my clarinet before we came up here. I've had it since high school.
Mm-hmm.
And when we moved back up here, when we sold all our shit,
yep.
When we were really strongly assessing like our needs, the things that we need to bring.
And you just never felt compelled to pick it up.
No.
And stay with it.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So I have lost a lot of it, which makes me sad. But anyway, the point is like I'm soulless and I don't like music is for sure there's something like missing.
Something happened. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hate concerts. Like I hate them.
Mm-hmm.
But I hate this. It's multifaceted. So it's a little bit of like whatever Jack has going on with like extra sensory things.
Yeah.
He hates loud noises and like he doesn't like his head to be touched and like he'll cover his ears. He's not autistic, but for sure when he was young and he did these things, it was like, oh no, like, is this one of the signs?
Right.
Like, he doesn't, there's just certain things that's just like, no, this triggers me.
Yeah,
and I get
Roxy's anxiety.
And I have that going on as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's crowds, because again.
But see, what's interesting is the stories that you have of like being in high school, we've touched on this before, but it's this idea like there's definitely a switch that has switched for you. Yeah, because you were in theater, you were on stage, you were in front of crowds, you did music, you went to concerts.
Yes, so I was in high school. I directed the musical Chicago. Right. And it is one of my favorite memories. I loved everything about it. Right. But in elementary school, yeah, I would go on stage and there's videos of me like singing in front of other people, which is literally my nightmare.
It obviously isn't your nightmare.
Well, no, and I think it's a couple things, but I for sure lived this other life. In high school, I went to concerts where I went through a punk phase for a while.
You claim to have gone through an underground punk phase for a while.
I don't claim it happened.
You do claim. You say it happened. I believe you. But
I would go like.
You do have an interesting part where we've been talking a lot about music because as we were dating and getting to know each other, there definitely were pieces of like it was like. You know who Finch is, and you know who like some of these bands that do not mesh
and with Fall Out Boy and all these concerts.
But before,
right
before Fall Out Boy was
line.
Fall Out Boy,
yeah,
right. And so you have so you have like these things that don't mesh, with everything else.
But I think what it was because I would be like in a mosh pit, but I remember that even being like, okay, I'm doing this, but I don't like it.
There's a huge difference between like. There's a lot of moms here. Yeah. And I feel anxiety to being in the middle of a mosh pit. Yeah.
But that's like you go to Warped Tour. So Warped Tour Chicago. Right. Circa 2003 I was there. And like there were with like my band t-shirt and I think I did these things. The guy I was dating was into this stuff a lot. But I also really, really it wasn't like okay, I hate this, but I'm doing it. Right. I really enjoyed the stuff. The mosh pit for sure, even then, it gave me anxiety. Well, but I think just growing up as I tried on a lot of different hats. Sure. And there are things that have come. I'm not afraid. I'm a little afraid to talk in front of crowds. But like I did it at church. I don't like. The reason I didn't like giving talks at church, the reason that was overwhelming. For sure. Is a million different reasons. But. If it's like, can you go in front of a crowd and give a report on blank? Yeah. As long as you know what you need to be talking about and you feel confident from your like. Yeah. But honestly, I have articulated now, I am more uncomfortable in interpersonal circles than I am in front of a crowd.
I guess that's true.
But, I think I tried on a lot of different hats and I've just learned what I like and what I don't like. And I don't know if it's because I'm a mom and there's literally 10,000 things that are spinning through my head at any given moment. Yeah. That it's just like, I don't like music. I don't want noise. Yeah. Like if I'm by myself, occasionally I'll turn on the radio. But and I turn on the radio in the car because I don't want to hear the sound of my children anymore. Right. Because I'll kill myself. But if I'm by myself, I prefer silence.
Yeah.
And I prefer sounds.
Right.
So I like the sound of water. Or I like the sound of bird. Like, I enjoy nature sounds, and that for sure calms me. And of course, I'm not unique in that. I mean, that's what.
But what's interesting is, like, that is definitely what Jack likes.
Yeah.
Like, he asks all the time, like, can I put on rain music?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Henry is just like, for the love of God.
No.
Can we please turn this off?
Can we play some music? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't. And I think that, I don't know if, I feel like I have lived different lives. There were things that I did in elementary school and in middle school and in high school that there would be no way I would do now.
Right.
Like, I want to try out for the volleyball team after never playing and just do it. I'm just, oh God.
Yeah.
Like, it's terrifying. But that's why I'm so encouraging of the boys, especially Michael, of just, now's the time, dude.
Yeah, go out.
Try, because he's, we're trying to get him to do a winter sport. And he's baseball 24/7.
Yeah.
And he's getting now more into it where it's like, we need to sit and watch the baseball games. And we need to, like, analyze the players. And we need to do all this stuff. And it's just like, I love that you love baseball. But you are not going to be defined by baseball at 11 years old.
Sure.
Like, now's the time to do all the things. And I hope that he does. Our kids don't seem like me. Jack's the most anxiety ridden for sure. But they seem willing to just be like, okay, let's try.
And I think that's kids in general.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's
Kids are
like,
not.
there is obviously something that does get switched.
Yeah, they're not
And I just equate it to,
paralyzed
like,
by their own inadequacies.
yeah. And I think it's also being paralyzed by, like, how others perceive you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think that that's what stops us.
And I think especially for moms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now,
Is
all
it
of a sudden,
that-
you have, like, you're never from a point of confidence.
Never.
You're not standing from a point of, like, I am the resident expert at this thing.
Yeah.
And I feel confident. Or it's like, this is just supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And this is not a big deal.
No.
And then everything is like, well, no, this is a really big deal.
No.
Like, if you don't feed your kid the right thing, like, did you breastfeed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, no. Well, then you're a failure. Then you fucked your kid up. Like, your kid, I don't even know. Like, I'm surprised they're still alive.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, God damn it.
I know. But that's
it. It's
It
like,
is.
it's that attitude about every goddamn thing. And so the reality is that we no longer can do anything just for fun.
No.
It's like, oh, well, like, we're just going to go and have fun or do whatever. And we're doing this. And, like, yeah, the kids are going to get some ice cream. Be like, oh, well, like, do you think that's good for them?
Yeah.
Like, fuck you. What are you
do
talking
they have
about?
a dairy-free alternative?
Yeah. It's like,
Do you know how they treat conventional cows? And no.
it's like, I just wanted to get the ice cream.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to have to be worried about all of these things now.
And it's worse. But for sure, I think that our kids are going to be saddled with that a lot earlier because of media, because of the ability to put on a show. I hope that there is a mass pendulum swing for their generation where it's just like, we hate all social media and we're not on it. And we are hermits. Because for sure, our generation, God, it's going to be so unique when we are talked about in the history books. Because we are the first and the last generation in a lot of respects. Because we are the last generation to experience life pre-internet and pre-computer. And the first one to utilize that technology from its inception. Yes, you agree with me. Because it's from a childhood perspective, I should say. So, like, new technology that came out, a lot of it is used for business, right? Was used for a purpose. We took it and used it recreationally.
We were maybe the first ones to do that.
That's what I'm saying.
At a young age, but the reality is that Henry was born with a touchscreen.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is, like,
but he doesn't have memory of what it was like before.
Yeah, our generation is the last generation that can recall, like, yeah, remember talking to your friend on the phone
while
and
still
like,
being a kid.
yes,
Right. I understand.
Of like, that these things my mom talks about memories of being a child and sitting in the kitchen with the phone, because there's the one family phone and it's corded and it's
but we have that same memory,
right. And it's so stupid that like this stuck in my head, but I'm like, I do that, is watching Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and the big sister Amy is talking to the boyfriend or the friend on the phone, and she's all tangled up in like the cord and twisted 17 times. Is that always comes in my brain, because I'm like, I do that too. And it was like this connection, but we're the last generation that recalls that.
Yeah, I understand.
That had been from previous generations.
Yeah.
But anyway, is we took technology and made it recreational in a lot of respects, and we ran with it. And so through every big, like you had whatever it is, the late 90s with like Windows 99, and then AOL dial-up internet, and then you fast forward 20 years and it's insane, and we have been there and at the forefront of every major technological advancement within the last 20 years, which has been extremely vast, right?
Right.
But I hope that as the kids grow up and become adults that it switches. Is we can see, because we're adults, we're like, oh shit, this is bad. Like, this is bad that the kids can't be away from a tablet. Because, yeah, we watched and we consumed a lot of media as a kid. But again, if it was time to go, if we're going to the store, it wasn't like, okay, well, I need my tablet. No, that's not a thing.
Right.
It's just there was a switch. You could be stuck in front of the TV with a bag of Doritos as a kid for all damn day long. But if you were going somewhere, that didn't come with you.
Sure.
And now we have the ability for literally to never leave our side. And we see the problems as adults, and we're like, oh shit, this is bad. And we love to blame the kids for the problem.
That started with Game Boy.
Yeah. Which, of course, we also didn't have.
Neither did I.
You didn't have a Game Boy?
Not until it was much, much later.
I find that hard to believe.
My parents did not let us have the video games. Because my mom, and I don't know about dad, but I know for sure they were like adamant. Like, we're not having them in the house. And it wasn't until like, we got a little bit older and it was like, all right.
Yeah.
Like, we'll
but that's for
splurge
sure
for
what
it.
I did.
Yeah.
Is I was adamant that we were not getting a system.
Right.
I still don't know. Do we have a system? I think the system has been hand-me-down from
Yeah,
your brother.
we have the PlayStation that he had, and like
Your brother.
Johnson had given us a Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
That doesn't super get used, but it's like
But
nowadays you don't need, you know what I mean? Like Mike doesn't play anything on a system.
No.
He plays on his computer.
Yeah. But for sure, COVID exacerbated that. Of just like, God, there's literally nothing else.
Like, video games are on the tablet. The very first video game the kids ever played was Minecraft.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it's different because we had Sega that was very much attached
Oh yeah.
to the TV.
Yeah.
And you could not leave. But I hope when they grow up that they go the opposite direction and it becomes like 1952 again. I don't foresee that happening because there's no separation for them of.
I think it's less important for me to be able to have it to where it swings the way you're talking about. There definitely is, right? So we know there's folks in our generation that are having kids we've made fun of them multiple times on the podcast that it's my kids don't play with things that have batteries. Like, it's only wooden toys.
Yeah.
And for me, that sounds great. But the problem is that you're going to handicap the fuck out of your kids.
I can argue both sides to that.
And I disagree with any argument that that's a good thing.
Okay.
Like, I understand why someone would do it, and I think on like
it's
face
altruistic.
value,
Yeah.
face value, and on paper that sounds great. The issue is though that because everything is going to involve a technological component, you are going to handicap that portion of your kids. Now, like, they don't need to be 2 and be involved
For sure.
but definitely it does need to be a piece where it's like you are able to have your kids be exposed, and what's the important piece is the balance.
Yeah.
To be able to have Michael will sit on a computer all day if you let him, but he'll also go out and chop wood.
Yeah.
So there's like it's those pieces where and I stand on this firmly because I think it's whether it was 1970 and there were the TV options, whether no matter what it was, there have always been at any point there's always been babysitters for your kids.
Yeah.
And it just relies on the parents being too lazy to be involved.
But that's what's crazy is I freaking hate, my least favorite group of people is women ages like 55 to 70.
Right.
They're such whiny, opinionated cunts.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I'll get, and it's always them that, because they're on fucking Facebook, right? That's their
demographic.
And that's what's so crazy. It's like, oh, these kids on social media. And it's like, bitch, you don't put your phone down.
Right.
Obviously, because you have 87 shares and posts because you just figured out how to share something and you're super excited, or like post a sticker. Yay for you. But the reason that I get so upset about the demographic is because talk about being holier than thou.
Mm-hmm.
It's they're the ones that love to post when it's like I did my I took a picture of laundry. I'm like, this is what laundry looks like when mom works all week. And then their comments are like, yeah, it's time that you started teaching your kids how to do their own laundry. You know, by that age, I was doing my own laundry. It's like, good for fucking, that's not the point of this.
And it also is not true.
It's not true. But that's what's crazy is it's like, you guys love to pretend that you were the best parents and that you were and for sure there's a hardness to that generation that you cannot take away from them.
Sure.
And the reason is as everyone's like, well, how did people back then have 5 kids and deal with it? I'm like, it's easy. They were allowed to beat their children.
And they didn't have to watch their kids.
And they didn't have to watch their kids. That's what's crazy is that generation loves to talk about like that they were these phenomenal parents. And it's like, the idea of it takes a village came about because in the 50s and 60s when there's these fucking cookie cutter houses all on one street, that's how the story of my grandma of I kicked the kids out of the house with a frozen loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter and says walk until the bread thaws. You could do that shit
because there was a mother in every single home.
And guess what?
And all the other kids.
And all you did is you smoked cigarettes, you smoked your Pall Malls, and you drank your Tab soda with your group of socialite friends and talked about your beehives and your perms and whatever else and your cheating husbands. Like, time hasn't changed. That like it like social norms of like women and community and all these things. It has evolved, and it is in a bad state right now.
Right.
But it has always existed this idea of like, we hate our children and they need to get the hell out of our house.
Yeah, kids have never not been annoying to adults.
Since the beginning of time, right? But it was like they love that group, that 55 to 70. They love to look at their history through rose-colored glasses in which that they were these perfect children that like did all their chores and sat at the dinner table every night and like ate their peas. Like it's just, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
You were just as obnoxious as my boys are. And guess what? You bitched about doing your own laundry too.
Yeah. And your mom owned slaves.
Yeah.
So shut up.
Yes.
Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
But here's the difference is because there's all these stories. It's like, well, yeah. Because again, my grandma she was a big personality. Dolores was a big personality, but she was a great grandma. But if you ask her 5 children, they have a very different opinion. It's like, yeah, she was a great mom, and it's a testament to how good of parents they are, of how much their 5 kids still like love and adore them. But if you the stories between my mom and my aunts and my uncles, it's like, yeah, if we didn't do our laundry, then Dodie would come in our room and pull out all our damn drawers and dump them, and then make us, reorganize everything, or she'd pull our hair, or like all these things. It's like, it just
that happened one time.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I mean?
And the other 99% of the time is Dodie just ended up saying, fuck this, I'll do it. For
sure.
Because it's just,
but it just takes one time.
Yeah.
Right. To have that memory.
Yeah.
Carved in your mind for the rest of time. Like, there's a couple one-time incidents that occurred when I was a youth.
We don't have enough time for that.
That just was like, oh my God.
Yes.
Okay. I'll not make mom mad.
Yeah.
Like that
Never
again.
Yeah.
But there's those instances, but it's not like but that wasn't every day.
No.
And what gets shared, like you said, is those rose-colored glasses, and it's like remembering Stephen Colbert, when he still had the Colbert Report, he came out with a book. I think it was like America, America, remembering the America that never was. And it was like, that is for sure, that generation that comes back. And I think it just probably is just, we talk about this all the time, is that a big goal that we have as we get older and get into that frame of years is to try our best to remember what it was like.
Yeah, and I talk about
this time period.
I talk about this with my friends all the time, of just like the overbearing mother-in-law and like never doing the right things with our kids, or like that there's issues where it's like, Christmas time gives me so much anxiety because like we have to choose between his mom and like my parents, and then his mom complains because she's up. It's just like this tension that exists, and we talk about it all the time. It's like, how can we remember what it's like to be a mom with young kids and having to make these decisions and not give our own kids shit for it?
Right. And also like being in the grocery store and your kid is freaking the fuck out. Mm-hmm. And you have those folks that feel like they have to come up and let you know that you're a bad mom. Yeah. And it's like, God, but like, how disconnected the fuck are you? Mm-hmm. Like, it never was not this way. Yeah. Yeah. Kids were always this way. That's why I'm like, kids have always been the same. Yeah. It's what we do as parents that are the difference maker. And that's where, for me, it's like both parents working and parents now trying to just are equally have their nose in their phones or in technology, mm-hmm. that don't want to be involved and don't want to have to. Mm-hmm. Why is your grandmother considered in your mind such a good grandma?
She was there, man. But she was there for all the things.
That's it. Yeah. It is time. Yeah. Time spent and attention given. Mm-hmm. Why does your mom consider her grandma not the best grandma?
Same reason. Great grandma Emily
did not give a fuck. It was like, you little bastards, get the hell out of here. Mm-hmm. We are smoking. It's Bloody Marys. It's 9 a.m. and it's bridge time. Yeah. Fuck off. Yes. It's like, she's really mean, everybody. Like, everybody stay away from grandma. Yeah. And that was her grandma. Mm-hmm. And for sure, for me, my dad's parents would come for a month at a time and visit. And they would stay with us for a month. And for me, it was like, oh, Grandpa and Grandma Fairbanks are the best. Mm-hmm. They had no money, mm-hmm. bought no things, mm-hmm. but they literally were there the same way that your parents, mm-hmm. when they're here, it is like every waking moment we are hanging out with the kids. Mm-hmm. We want to do stuff with the kids. Mm-hmm. And your dad definitely gets to have the award of the most loved grandparent. Hands down. It's not even close.
My poor mom. It's just because, and that's what I'm like, it's having boys.
It's also boys,
yeah,
for sure.
It's this identity.
But it's like your dad is in it for time. Your mom's a busybody, so she has to be doing chores. So she's doing chores all goddamn day because that's what she has to do to obviously survive and breathe oxygen, is also be working, right? Same as you.
I identify with that.
But Poppy's just fun all the time. Poppy's like, let's go get ice cream. Let's hang out. Let's play games. Let's tickle fights. Yes. Like I'm going to be the MC for your beatbox battle and rap battle, which I can't even be in the same goddamn room when I hear the kids doing it. It makes me want to die. But it's stuff like that he wins the award. Yeah. And for sure, my mom's parents were around more. Yeah. Because they were here with us all the time. Yeah. But it wasn't the same. Yeah. And it just was, and it didn't mean that, like, my mom's mom, she spent a lot of time with us. Yeah. But a lot of times it was time where it was like, we're going to go walking, and we're going to go for a walk, and we're going to walk next to each other. But we're not hanging out. And, like, if I don't walk correctly, I get corrected because my toes are pointing out, and I need to have my toes be forward. Oh, yeah. Like, it needs you to stand up with your shoulders back. Don't slouch.
I love Arabelle, though.
For sure.
I love her as an old, weak, incapable woman.
but she was a good grandma. But going to the beach with grandma's going to sit under the umbrella and she's going to read her novel while we play in the water. Yeah. It wasn't the same. Yeah. And so that is definitely, it's just time spent. And so that is where your goal as a grandparent is to be your grandchild's friend. Yeah. Your goal as a parent should not be trying to be your kid's friend. No.
But I think, so here,
But but to finish this thought all the way through is that it is the time that is spent that makes all that difference.
Yeah.
And so it's like if you want your kid to have certain inherent values, or you want to make sure that there's certain things that they are exposed to, it takes work, which means you got to fucking put your own things down. And now you don't get to do the work that you need to do. And now I got to go take the kid out to show him how to cut wood because I don't want him to cut his goddamn foot off.
But I feel that so hard because and I think everybody's busy being busy, which we know.
Yeah.
But I'm so anxiety ridden as a mom because like I feel like I don't have time to do goddamn anything because I have all the freaking things. And I understand that as a parent most of the time, and we've talked about this a million times about phones and social media and videos and all these things that just become time sucks. That everybody has the same 24 hours. It's like how you use it, whatever. But kids have been the same forever. Because everyone's like, oh, kids these days, right? Kids have been the same forever. But what is being produced is vastly different.
Totally.
And that's because even like you are now coaching football. Yeah. And it's just, I mean, we're not talking like Henry's, they're little, right? And they've always been little and they've been like that forever. But you're talking about like the seniors, so young teenagers.
5 to 13.
Yeah. Well, not. Yeah, you're coaching 5 to 13, but the seniors are like they're teenagers, right? Right. But you're like they're just a bunch of soft ass bitches. Yes. And what you would assume is because we live, so Waynesboro has this reputation.
We definitely, in comparison to all the surrounding area, we have what would be considered an inner city. Yeah, quote for unquote. A very, very small town. Yes. For a rural community. Yes. We're the most
laughable if you have ever seen an inner city. But you would assume that those kids are more rough and tumble because of their upbringing, and what you're finding is the opposite. Everybody's a soft ass bitch. Like you would assume because we have the poor Black and Latino kids on the other side of the tracks, that we're going to be better in sports, because that's typically how it is you have the rougher kids. Yeah,
and less important, like Black and Latino is going to go. Reality is hand in hand with low SES, but the fact is it doesn't matter. No. Even the kids that were the white kids that were the rougher kids, they were rough.
Yeah, they're rough, but they're typically, it's that like they go hand in hand.
There's an edge.
Yeah, typically. An edge, better athletes, right? And you're finding that those things are not colliding the way that they used to. And the thing is just because of the vast disengagement from parents. Yeah. What's crazy is like
well, it's also vast disengagement with parents, which that's usually been pretty consistent.
I was gonna say, yeah, because back in the day it was like,
but it's what the kids have available to them to now waste their time. Yes. And so that's what's crazy, is that even the kids that are low SES that we have are not cutting their teeth by beating the shit out of each other in each other's backyards or running the streets. Yeah. They literally are sitting on video
playing
games.
Street ball. Yeah.
Right. Like it's that time is being wasted on the video games. And the problem is that there isn't someone that's pushing them to go do something else. Yeah. So they literally are burning the majority
because like you're talking about disengaged parents. Mm-hmm. If you're talking about low SES, the other side of the tracks, right? As far as disengagement. Now, again, this is so not a judgment. You have the poor single mom that's dealing with a myriad of shit that I could never possibly understand.
Or they're just at work.
Right. I mean, but that's been the same for multiple generations. That's not new, right?
For sure.
But it is that if those parents have been disengaged for so long, mm-hmm. That hasn't changed, but there's definitely a different product of child that has come about. Yeah. And it's because even with disengagement from a parental perspective is the thing, like that's why community is so important. Yeah. And the things that they did before video games were available is, even if you didn't have mom and dad there, obviously, to engage with you, to direct you in an activity, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, mm-hmm. is you would be involved in something and you were learning some way, somehow.
Even if it wasn't good things.
Even if it wasn't good things.
Right.
But it was like and just those lessons that translate to athletics, of like, if you were playing street ball is you had to learn to be a tough motherfucker,
right,
or you're not going to get to play.
Right.
You're going to get the shit kicked out of you. And like, that's such an important life lesson.
Yeah.
That translates so well.
And it's not being taught.
It's not, but because nowadays what the kids are going to, it's Mario Kart. So it's like, what are we learning from Mario Kart? That if you die, it's, oh, okay, I regenerate or why, whatever. And it's like, there's no tough lesson at all.
Right.
And because there's no tough lesson, now that they're playing football, and separate the fact that it is a physical component.
Yeah.
It's something that's hard. So like and this is why I was because I have a lot of friends now that are like, oh, I love that Michael's in band. Like we try to get our kid in band and they're like, they're just not interested. And for us, if Michael was very, very, very adamant that he did not want to play band, I may have felt differently, but he for sure was indifferent and more antagonistic at first.
Mm-hmm.
But we were pretty staunch in the fact that it was like, no, you're going to do this.
He cried for days. Michael cried for days about band.
I don't recall this.
Okay. Because you have an amazing memory of like what you do to your memory.
I don't know.
But no, he came home. It was last year before spring break where we had to decide his electives. And we're like, you're doing band. And he was like, you're doing band. And he's like, no. I'm like, you literally don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And he for sure wept.
I don't recall this.
Yes, he wept openly.
Okay.
And then we dealt with like, it was like, what we don't care, Michael. No. You're going to do this. And it was like the next day, it's like, I'm not doing band. It's like, you are misunderstanding. This isn't a discussion.
Yeah. And it was the exploratory route. It sounds awesome. And there's a lot of super cool things that are involved in it. Sure. And I hope that at some point he gets access to those items. But the main reason, because for a lot of people, it's like, well, my kid, it's just, they're just not interested in with the musical side of it. It's like, there's the same way with athletics. The reason that we are such sound components of the idea that our kids are going to do some sort of athletic. But again, if they were super anti, because I know that there's a lot of parents that are like, well, my kid just doesn't like athletics. They don't like the competition. They're not athletic. That's fine. There's a million things that exist.
Mm-hmm.
I still advocate that athletics will teach you more than you will ever learn in school out of arguably anything. But with band, the reason, and this is why I tell people, I'm like, the reason that we push Michael to it is because it's hard. Because people are like, well, I wasn't in band. I don't have any musical experience. So like, I hope they don't need help. And it's like,
it is not a judgment that's on our end of folks that don't have their kid do band. But for me, it's every other thing that are the electives he's been exposed to. So for me, it's always about exposing to something new.
Right. And for me, the main point, and this is why I drive home, is that it's hard.
Right.
Band is hard. And and you said like, I cried because he got a strong sound out of the instruments on the first try.
Right.
It took me 2 weeks plus to get any sound out of my clarinet.
Right.
And I remember many times and being like, I can't do this. I made a mistake. And within that 2 week period when I first started, like, this is too hard. I can't do it. And my parents being like, bitch, we spent $500 on your clarinet. You're going to figure this shit out.
Right.
But it's us with Michael is so tying everything together is you have that physical component with football, and you could have some kids that are just like, I don't like being physically attacked in this way. Totally. And I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's not all that. Because if they had a desire to play football in any way, shape, or form, that is in there somewhere. But the soft ass bitch part that comes out is that everybody is just like, I want to do this because it's hard.
Exactly.
And that for some reason is technology, of course, has softened us because of convenience. Because back in the day, it was everything that you had to do. Even if you were being a lazy bum on the couch, is if you wanted to change the channel, you still had to like physically get up to do it.
Right.
But that's a very, very mild example of the reality on just you had to do things back then.
Well, yeah, because the football was hard
Football has always been hard.
And football compared to what you would have to do otherwise was better than what you were going to have to do.
Yeah, football was fun. Because
at least it was a sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, so it's like it was like, this is hard, but I get to hit people.
Yeah. And
I don't get in trouble for hitting people. In fact, they like me more the harder I hit others. So for me, it's like, this is awesome. And so it's like, if there's an alternative option that's not hard, kids will always pick what is the least hard option to do. But
people love to blame kids for that. It's like, that's human nature.
Totally.
Yeah, adults too. But that's why like the pandemic shit has been so goddamn dangerous, is because we have taken away the ability for anything. Where now it's like, literally everything can be delivered to your door.
And there's nothing... We had to pause. I don't know what I was saying. Pause. I don't know what we were talking about.
Hard is football was hard, but it was still fun because it was sport and people liked you more for doing it. But it's just it's human nature. It's human nature just to take the easy way out. And the pandemic.
Yeah. So
is everything now.
Everything now though is instead of
softened.
Right. And
bless you again. No, went away. It's coming. There we go.
But instead of having to adapt to our surroundings, we're forcing the surroundings to adapt to us.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a problem.
Yes.
And right now what we're doing is we're forcing our surroundings to adapt to literally the 0.03%.
Whatever the lazy, like.
And not even has to be the laziest. You could use this in the most extreme examples. So you open the door for pandemic. If the pandemic and what is happening is killing 0.03% of the population, we have now changed everyone's lives, and crippled businesses to account for that 0.03% of deaths. That means 99, right? 0.07, however we want to run that stat. It's above 99% of the people that are not going to die and have not died.
I cannot confirm or verify that. But that's understand fine. The point.
But the point is...
a very, very, very small percent.
Tiny.
Yes.
And so it's like, well, because these people could die, we change everything.
Yeah.
And it's that premise has been getting laid for years. And it started with 0% tolerance of bullying.
I was going to say, no child left behind in zero tolerance for bullying.
And it's just, it is meeting an apex at this point. Now on a global...
of that kids can't handle jack shit.
People can't handle. And whoever our lowest possible denominator, the lowest people percentage that could be affected, somehow now we have to change everything. And the fact is like...
it's like we've taken Darwinism and just flipped it on its head.
Yeah. Whoever the weakest is that's now what we have to account for. And it's like... and I get it. You have a lot of different mindsets of like, you're only as strong as your weakest link. But you know what the Spartans did with folks that were the weakest link?
I know. But
they got rid of them.
I know. But
no more weak links.
I know.
And I'm not saying it has to be that extreme. But the reality is like, if you have a chink in your armor, right? So literally, if you have a dent in armor, it was dangerous to have. Because it was a weak part in your armor that almost made your armor useless. You didn't just live... with that weak chink in the armor.
Yeah, you fixed it.
You had to fix it. And so the fact is let's say it's not going to be infanticide, right?
I know.
Let's say it's not killing the babies and it's not euthanasia of mentally handicapped people.
Yeah.
But the fact is that it does need to be something where we are helping strengthen and raising the tide instead of being like...
lowering the standard.
And that's it. And we've touched on this a lot of different times, but it does come back to this as well, where it's, well, this is too rough. This sport is too rough. This is too dangerous. So we need to lower the danger to be able to account. Now, I'm big on the contact sports and the CTE stuff, and I'm not super huge on having kids be in contact sports.
You agree with the fact that football is too dangerous to play and should not be done in pads and helmets at such a young age.
The way that it used to be done.
Years and years.
Right.
Yes.
For the way it has been done forever.
Correct.
But it doesn't change the fact that it is still a violent sport.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to change it so that people don't lose their minds, kill themselves, or kill their families. I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
But if it's too hard because the kids are too soft, if that's why we're changing it, now I have a problem. Yeah. And it's like, but this is so hard. And it's like we used to be able to do, like, it's 12 pull-ups, used to be the standard. Let's use that.
Yeah.
And it's like, but we need to lower that. There's no physical reason for safety why that would need to be lowered, other than that now it's too hard and nobody can pass. Yeah.
We keep expanding our airplane seats instead of addressing the deeper problem.
But I think that is a really, really good example. Is that airlines, now let's ignore the fact that they are shrinking the seat size and shrinking the aisle size so they can fit more people on a plane because they want to make more money. Yeah. But the fact is that there's now complaints of like the seats need to be bigger because we're too fat. Yeah. And it's like, what? Yeah. You have this backwards. Yeah. And I think that is very much, that's a huge piece of this. And I think that is a piece that I don't think we were even necessarily wanting to touch on. But it is definitely, it's a major component of what we're seeing with the kids and with parents is now what we want. It's like, well, my kid doesn't like loud music, so no loud music can be played. Yeah.
Well, it's why, and I get it, and I don't. But it's the peanut allergies. It's, well, we have a peanut allergy in the classroom, so nobody can have peanut butter. And I understand, like, I do have a cousin whose son is so deathly allergic to peanuts that it's like the aerosol that's created could kill the poor bastard. But it's like,
then that kid should be homeschooled.
Yes, that's what it is.
Like the reality is.
And I understand as a parent, this desire is like, well, no, I want my child to be exposed to things. It's like, yes, but your child has a limiting factor that you are now demanding the rest of the world to accommodate to. It's the movie, the accountant that you go to all the time, which is just the world is not going to adapt to your needs. But we have now created a world in which that happens. Mm-hmm. So our kids are going to grow up to where it's things where it's like, they feel that, like, the fact that Jack knows, it's like, well, that's racist. It's Jack, you don't know what racism is. Like, it's what, I think that these are important topics.
Totally.
But it's this need that the very, very small percentage of society has, that now it's, if the rest of the world doesn't adapt to what my beliefs are and my feelings, and I am all about inclusion. I'm all about compromise. I'm all about knowledge and that everybody should have a fair shot at things. But there are just some things that it's this expectation that we need to cater to your needs. But that's how people are nowadays, and that's what pisses me off.
And everybody caters to it. The reality is that it's the smallest percentage of people that are the absolute loudest, that are on Twitter, that are now causing major corporations to be fearful and make stupid apologies or change things or do whatever because they are the loudest, most obnoxious percent, and they're so tiny.
Now, for Henry's kindergarten thing, one of the questions is like, is there any holidays or celebrations that your family doesn't celebrate? It's not like, what do you guys celebrate? It's what do you not celebrate? Because if I say...
How come you didn't give it to me? You realize we could have Googled that? Do you know how many holidays there are? We could have given them like 500 holidays that we don't celebrate.
But that's what...
Because you realize that every day are like...
National...
4 different national holidays of some fucking kind.
Yes. We don't celebrate National Hot Dog Day because I could have given a whole reason. Like, it's like lines. Like, I could have written a paragraph. But that's what's crazy is it's just... As a kid... If someone had a birthday party in the class, guess what? They could hand out invitations. And it didn't have to be for the whole fucking class. It didn't matter if people's feelings got hurt.
Right.
That's why the idea, and I've talked about this before, of like, I'm going to invite you to my birthday party was like the nicest thing that someone could say to you, because they didn't have to invite the 20 other kids in the class just because they're in the class.
And that's also why.
But now on the kindergarten thing, it's like if someone had a birthday party, they could bring in cupcakes. Right. It didn't matter if the Jehovah's Witness that was in the class didn't celebrate. We were still having the Halloween party.
Right.
We were still having the birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's, we understand that birthdays are a time for celebration, but we kindly ask that you don't send in invitations so that no one feels left out, and that some families choose not to celebrate. It's like, then fuck them. 99% of the kids that are going to be in his class are going to go to a birthday party, are going to celebrate the standard holidays that we have in America.
Yeah, and if you don't like that,
then that's okay. We had the super
else.
Jewish kid growing up, Alex, who was our friend, and his mom was fantastic because guess what? You had the Christmas concert. And I'm not going to get on like the Republican podium of like, we say Merry Christmas and God bless America around here because this is America. Mm-hmm. It's no, I recognize that there are a lot of winter solstice based holidays, right?
Right.
That exist in the world. But as a kid, it was the Christmas concert that we had.
Right.
So instead of being anti and bitching, Alex's family, who did not celebrate Christmas because they're super Jewish, the mom just came in
with Jewish stuff.
And we had a Hanukkah celebration on one of the days.
Which was cool.
Which was super awesome. And I got to learn all about Hanukkah.
Yep.
And it's
it doesn't always have to come from a place of victimhood.
Yes.
And that's where all of it comes from now. Is now it's a victim.
Yeah.
And the problem is there's a lot of things that are being pushed in public schools and being pushed as a national narrative of being a major proponent for victimhood.
Yes.
And it's like
everybody
that's
wants to
not
play that
real.
card.
And that's not and that's it. Everybody doesn't want to play that card.
Yeah.
It's just a super, super loud minority that wants to play that card. And that's why it's like, if you shut the news off, and we said this before, if you shut the news off and you just interact with people in your community, they don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
They don't care.
People.
They're just regular people that want to do regular things because the brewery that's going to run the Christmas party or whatever, they don't have to apologize for that.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening in normal communities. Mm-hmm. In your normal communities, they're throwing this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. And that's what's reality. And so it definitely is this piece. And there's so many stories that I think it's worth ending, but it's just, we are feeling a need to allow the loudest or the weakest to go unchecked because of what's politically correct or whatever. And it's like, it's just because.
And I do think, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I think that the media perpetuates that because the thing that I keep coming back to in my brain, we talked about it, and it's a very, very, very small example on a much larger scale, is obviously the media and the news, there's a mass division, right? If you come out and say, I am a Democrat, then you are hated by the other side,
right? Or
vice versa, right? Mm-hmm. There is just you're one or the other. There's this massive division. You're a masker or you're not. And because of that decision, it goes, there's so many other things that you get placed in these categories, right?
Right.
But it's the other day when we were at a baseball game, a dude came up to you and he goes, I'm so sorry, but when you weren't looking, someone stuck that gator head on the back of your car.
Right. And he was wearing a Georgia t-shirt.
He's wearing a Georgia t-shirt. And again, this is kind of a stupid example, but it's what my brain keeps coming back to and especially during the Florida-Georgia game, right? Always around Halloween, it is one side or the other. And
right.
You freaking hate the other side.
For sure.
You hate Georgia or you hate Florida, right? Mm-hmm. But and that, of course, gets perpetuated as there's this build up to this game and everything that you watch on TV and everything is pushed with a propaganda towards those two sides. But here's this dude that he's a Georgia fan and you're obviously a Florida fan and you have your belief. But it is a fun and game situation because there's an understanding that it's like he's just part of the community.
Right.
Because even though he is a staunch Georgia fan, and you are your kids both play baseball,
right?
And you both live in community, and you work in the community, and there's camaraderie, and there's commonality that for sure exists, and that's what. And again, it's a fun and game situation,
right?
But it's that situation is like that because there's no media involved. If you were to see that same dude on game day and
Fuck
had ESPN all day long, like bitches get in fights and get like stabbed and shot every year at the world's largest cocktail party because of
the shirt that they wear.
Because of the shirt that they wear. And that's what's crazy is if you take away the media part of it.
And the tribal, but it's also major tribal.
There is tribalism.
But your point is not lost of the importance where we can still be in these tribes, these groups that we belong to, and still be able to live in a community
coexist
together,
because there is commonality in other things.
Right.
Is I may hate Donald Trump, and you may love him, or vice versa. But that is one piece that I wholeheartedly may disagree with you on. But I can find other things that align us. And I know that sounds cheesy. It's like, well,
it's not, but it isn't
together, not what separates you. But it's
the reason why you feel like that could be cheesy, though, is because what you're seeing in the media is that the media's job is to serve a much higher purpose, and that purpose is solely to divide.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that you have the people that love Trump or hate Trump, and because and is stupid because it's surrounded by one freaking man. And then there's these assumptions that get based of like, well, because you love Trump, that means you this and you this, and it's like, bitch, no. Like people are so multifaceted.
How about people that believe the Earth is flat?
Oh yeah.
The reality is you're gonna have people that like talk about if someone believes that the Earth is flat. And people that don't.
But there's this but that's what's crazy. Is like, and you are a conundrum because it's like, yeah, you can argue the Republican side. You personally, as John Fairbanks, can argue the Republican side. And you like guns. And you like hunting. And you like a lot of these stereotypes that go with it. But it's like, damn it, you also like to go to the theater. And you enjoy, you're convoluted, but you're not unique.
No, more people are more convoluted.
Yes, and that's what's crazy is that there's commonality in everything. And even like, okay, so I go back to like my brother. My brother and I live very different livelihoods, very different lifestyles, and have very different foundational beliefs.
Right.
And there's a lot of things about him that I don't understand and I don't agree with. And he does the same thing with me, right? But it's, God, this is cheesy, but it's like we're still people, right? But there is something that we have that has aligned. It was our upbringing. It is the fact that we are living in this time period at this moment. Like there are things that can be brought to light, but that's why it's so important for looking at the local community and breaking it down is because, again, going back to the Georgia guy, is because he lives in this area and works in this area and also has a son who also plays baseball. Like, that's what's seen first and not the divisive part of it. You have that tribalization, and that's what led him to say that comment to you. Right. Because it's, hey, dude, I can't keep my mouth shut because you're from Florida and I hate Florida. And
and that's why my retort was, obviously they were giving out free shirts at Salvation Army. Yes. And you got stuck wearing that one.
Yes. Right. Yes. But again, it's a fun and game situation, but there's more there that aligns everybody than divides.
Without doubt. But if you don't shut off the TV,
I was gonna say, yeah,
then you live in a constant state of division.
And that's the difference nowadays. Is we're talking about all the good old days and reminiscing about how things were, and it's crazy that alignment of how things have been the same forever and people have been the same forever, but we also are so different. It's the idea that like change is not linear; it's cyclical. Yeah, and that the product of who we are is vastly different, and the product of our kids seems vastly different than even when we were growing up. But it's because of the resources that are available at our fingertips all the time. And I think that is why everyone's like, the world's so fucked up now, and kids these days and all these things. People have been saying that for years, for sure. Mm-hmm. And back in the day, in terms of like the world being fucked up, there was a lot worse shit that was going on back in the day. But because everybody was isolated to their local community and didn't have this ability to jump on bandwagons of only like highlighting their beliefs and it's just, when you're forced to live in a community, you're forced to interact with people that are different. Mm-hmm. And you're forced to see things that are different because it doesn't matter. Because nowadays, because you can jump online and join a group for like the furries who also love
Jesus
and shooting guns,
mm-hmm.
like while jousting. Like I guarantee there's clubs for everything, right? And so you can find, and while it's great that you can find your tribe and find your people, it's equally so dangerous now because you can allow yourself to isolate as opposed to just being like, hey, I'm a giant weirdo and I like these things and I live in Waynesboro, Virginia, and forcing yourself to intermix with anybody else in your community and finding commonality this way, mm-hmm. where it's no one's going to be exactly like you, but now you can find very, very small groups that are exactly like you and you can hide there.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword without a doubt. Yeah, like there is massive benefits of being able to know that you're not alone, that you have people that are like you, that you can find people that are like you and be able to have that camaraderie. But there's a huge difference of being able to take that as far as like that camaraderie and realize that there are people that are in your community mm-hmm. in person mm-hmm. that are like you.
Yeah, they may not be exactly like you, but that's okay. Is because those differences are what allows people, it's that hardness that you learn, that I have to interact with it. Like, I am scared to death for when our kids grow up, because you talk about this, is our friend has a daughter who is dating, and the daughter is getting pissed off because the boyfriend will like text her all night long, but then when they see each other, like, he doesn't want to talk to her. He only wants to text her. Mm-hmm. But I'm scared to death for when our kids grow up, is kids are being taught that you have to be politically correct in every single thing that you say and do, and that you can't speak the wrong thing or you're going to get canceled, and that people don't know how to talk to people. Mm-hmm. And that frightens the shit out of me, because it's when they grow up, how are they going to be able to handle anything? When they go to work, if there's a coworker that's an obby, mm-hmm. that's super fucking weird and obnoxious, which every office has since the beginning of time, mm-hmm. how do they deal with that person?
Right.
Do they just say, he's too weird, or she's too difficult, or too mean and I can't handle it, so I have to quit? Or I leave, or I don't put myself in that, because that's what it is now. Is if it happens all the time with Michael, if his friends get pissed off, they just leave. Mm-hmm. They close out of the chat. Mm-hmm. And it's so bad. It's so bad on so many fronts. You don't need to be on the streets getting the shit kicked out of you mm-hmm. to be hard.
Right.
It's just, there are normal things that happen in in-person communication. And granted, I'm not the right person to be talking to about this, because I will hide from interpersonal communication all the time.
Right.
But I also recognize that about myself, that it was, hey, being a stay-at-home mom and hiding in my house, I'm super comfortable here, but like, now going to the store overwhelms me. Like, something has changed in me and I don't like it. But
you've caught that. You've caught that
but
about
that's
yourself.
The biggest thing, is back in the quote unquote the good old days, is people have been the same forever. But even when we were kids, we were forced to have to be with whatever was around us.
And I think that's you're saying, like, this is what scares me with our kids getting older. And I think that's, for me, it's like, oh, well, no. You literally now have a blueprint of what you should do then.
I know.
The exact opposite.
Right. And that's why we have our kids. But like, it's crazy, because sweet Michael has a lady friend, right?
Right.
He's got this adorable girlfriend thing. And just like on his own accord.
Right.
he's like, I'm going to go on a bike ride. So he rode his bike to her house,
Yes.
knocked on the door, and the dad answered. And he's like, hi, I am Michael, and I am a friend of Blank's. And
would she like to go ride bikes?
yes, like essentially, I would like to call upon your daughter. Is she available?
Right.
And but he did that in like a face-to-face setting with the dad.
Correct. That is how you fight. It's the same as you don't limit free speech.
Yeah.
People want to limit free speech. And the fact is that you don't combat bad free speech by limiting it.
Yeah. I
you
agree with that.
combat bad free speech with good or better.
Yeah.
And so the reality is that there's going to be so many people, so many kids that are going to be doing things just back-ass backwards, no matter what your personal opinion is.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is that if Trump has taught anyone anything, it's double the fuck down.
Yeah.
I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, whether you love him or you hate him.
Double the fuck down on what makes you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you unique, what makes your kid unique, whatever it is, have them just double the fuck down on it. Because what that does is you have to stop giving a shit about what other people think.
Mm-hmm.
Because those people don't have actual thoughts. What they do is that they mimic whatever they see on TV or whatever the media is telling them that matters. That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
So that's why everyone has to stop giving a shit about what other people think, because 97% of the time, those aren't their actual thoughts anyway.
Right.
So if you have a thought that's yours or something that strikes very particularly close to you, it's just own that shit. Because what that does is that ends up being that lighthouse effect, where it just shines a light to those other people that are looking for that same thing too. Now, obviously, don't be a raging asshole and don't be like an anti-Semite about everything.
But here's the crazy thing, is that if you were an asshole, if you in a community with actual humans and a tribe, if you are an asshole,
you get checked.
You are going to get checked in some way. There are
Correct.
going to be consequences to your actions.
You should. And that's what also has stopped happening.
Yes.
Because it's like, oh, well, no, like, you know, he's different, so you don't say anything. It's like, no. If he's different, then it's really important for him to understand you cannot say shit like that.
Yeah.
You can't say shit like that.
There may be, if they have Asperger's, there's going to be a medical reason why they're a giant asshole, but it's not an excuse.
You still have to correct it.
Yeah, it's Dexter. It's the idea that it's, Dexter, son, you may be a sociopath, but that doesn't mean that you can...
You can't just kill anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're going to kill people, let's have a code.
Yes.
Right? Let's work on a code so that
there
we understand
are social
how you can
norms
exist.
That you can, yeah.
And that's where it's like, you don't have to know that. You don't have to feel that. Mm-hmm. And I sympathize with this very much. Because people are like, well, I don't feel that, or I don't understand. It's like, nobody said you had to fucking understand. No. This is the game that needs to be played. Mm-hmm. Right now, this is what socially is acceptable. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's your job to push that envelope a little bit.
Yeah. To cause a revolution. Right, because that's how change happens. It's since the beginning of time. But it's this need that I don't like this and I don't understand this. And because I don't like it and understand it, the world needs to know that. It needs to now cater to how I'm doing and how I'm feeling.
Right.
And that's what I struggle with is no bitch. There's again, it's because people can broadcast from the rooftops how they feel. Right. And then go in cyberspace and then cherry pick the people that feel that way and then hide there. And then they feel this false sense of empowerment that what they're doing is like God's work. And it's,
and there's
if you do that in a regular community with people,
you're going to get punched in the fucking mouth.
Yes. And you're going to get fucking checked.
Correct. And that is what's missing is the accountability. Like, oh, you are a keyboard warrior. Mm-hmm. Oh, you think you can just say this vile, nasty shit to people and there is no accountability for your actions. Mm-hmm. And that was one of my...
Because there hasn't been.
For sure. But there was Michael Guilford, one of the things he used to say all the time, I don't think I've ever even talked to you about this, but he used to say this phrase all the time. It's like, you can do anything. Right? There just is what happens next is going to be a result of that. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it very much came from where he was from, was like, listen, friend, you can say whatever you'd like to say, but understand that what comes out of your mouth, there will be a repercussion.
Yeah. Whether good or bad. Yeah.
So it's like, just own that shit.
Mm-hmm.
You can do whatever you'd like.
Be ready for what's next.
But I'm going to punch you in the goddamn mouth if you step out of line. And that for sure is those pieces that are missing. So for me, I'm not super worried about the kids getting raised, because the fact is that this attitude that I have and you have about raising them is very much going to be that lighthouse attitude, which is just, no, you're going to do things that are fucking normal.
Yeah.
And if there are other kids that aren't doing those fucking normal things, eventually they will go do unfucking normal weird things on their own. Mm-hmm. But the people that are your people, they will see you.
Yeah.
And that's what's important, is that you want to do this for business. You want to, it's important to attract the right audience, but it's equally, if not more important, to repel the right audience. You do not want people that are not your people showing up.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to repel those people by being irreverent and authentic.
Yes. I know.
Now, you can be super courteous and kind and sweet and optimistic as well, and you attract optimistic people, because really negative fucks aren't going to be like, yeah, she thinks everything is going to be great. And it's going to hell in a handbasket. Well, guess what? You ain't my people then, because I think everything's going to work out okay. And you're genuinely optimistic. You're genuinely authentic. And you just own who you are. For me, my personality is more on, I'm going to be irreverent. So if you're not comfortable around me, then please fuck on.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Like, please go away. Yes. Like, I choose my language purposefully.
I know.
But I understand.
I struggle.
But you have to. But you always have, and the same as you have to teach this to kids all the time. There is an element. You have to know your audience. You don't get to tell the teacher to go fuck herself. I mean, you can.
Right.
But
yes,
there are consequences that come from that.
You have to play the game.
You learn.
Yeah. You
learn how you can talk, who you can talk to. It's a lesson that's very hard to learn as you're growing up. But once you learn that, then it's like, oh, okay, this is the game a little bit. And then the people that are truly your friends, right? Like the 4 people, because it's not the 1,500 that are on Facebook, but the 4 folks that are your friends, it's, you can be genuinely who you are. And they're like, yep, that's the person I like. Yep. I like to be around them. And just be like, I don't like that person. They are fill in the blank. And then but that needs to be purposeful. Because it's the same thing as, like, if you try and be able to appeal to everybody, you appeal to nobody.
It is. But but I think it's also that fine line of, like, with finding your people, but also being able to, it's just, we're so used to now, it's like, nope, I don't like that person. Goodbye. And we cancel them. And we block them. And when it's that's not the way to do it either. There needs to be an understanding. And I think that's, again, is we become more defined in our adulthood and like what I like and what I don't like. I don't like drinking.
Right.
I don't like recreational drug use.
Makes you uncomfortable.
I don't like cheating. Right. I don't like, there are things that are just no.
Right.
No for me. But I still will happily engage with others. Would I be happiest on like a Friday night with like a book and gardening club with the grandmas? Probably. That those are my people, right? That's where I can find myself the most comfortable.
Sure.
But I openly engage with and still enjoy a lot of people that do things that I absolutely never, ever in a million years could find myself doing.
Right.
Because they're part of the community. And you have to be able to, while simultaneously defining who you are, learn to deal with who you are in the rest of the world.
Yeah,
because who you are is not who Billy is and Susie is and Timmy is and whoever. So because everybody is so defined in who they are as individuals, again, there's commonality with everybody and there's also differences. And you have to be able to mishmash the two and learn that it's okay, Abby in the office, I don't like you. You're a giant fucking weirdo and you make me uncomfortable. But you are still a part of this office. And so we are going to find a way to like to deal with you and work together.
Only because we don't want you to come to the office and kill everyone.
Well, yeah, that too. But you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Is that there's too many people now that's like, no, this is who I am and I don't care and give a fuck all about the world and I'm just going to be who I am. And you continue to isolate by doing that. Because you continue to just, again, it's Trump with doubling down, man, is whether you love him or you hate him, that dude for sure highlighted some shit that's going on a much bigger scale. Mm-hmm. But it's...
He was the gasoline. The fire was always there.
Yes, and I agree.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the doubling down on like, no, I'm a giant raging asshole, and if you don't like it, you know, these colors don't run. You don't like this country, then get the hell out. It's like, I get it. And I understand the base of frustration in those types of statements, but it's you're continuing to back away from humanity by doing that. And you're going to find your little niche people, and that's going to be it. But that's not how the world works. It's not how society has ever worked from our inception. You have to be able to deal with other people. You have to be.
But what's important is that you stand up for what you believe is right.
Yes, but that's why I'm saying it's that game of defining who you are and knowing who you are and having your own set of beliefs, but also being able to deal with people that feel differently and still interact with them. And I don't, me as Amy Fairbanks, I don't like Donald Trump. I think he's a crazy, right? But I guarantee you that if I had a conversation with him, because what I see is what is portrayed, right? Granted, he's playing a character and he says a lot of shit and he does a lot of shit and I don't agree with 99% of it, right? But if I were to have a conversation with him on a human level, I guarantee you there could be something that it's like, okay, I understand that. Or I agree with that. Or I see where you're going with that.
I find that less likely because I believe that there's at some point you begin playing the character that people make you.
But the media has done that. If just
100%.
That's what I'm saying. If I could get somebody as a human.
But that's it. I think it's a better analogy of if at no point are you sitting down with someone in your community being like, whoa. Before we get talking, are you a Trumper or not?
Right.
Because that's not real. What real is like...
That's what's happening.
But because that's what the media portrays to be happening. That's not what's happening. The media is doing that.
Yeah. I understand.
You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
But if you're in the community, there's no way. We're going to go to the local, which we should because it sounds really good right now.
Weezy's Kitchen?
Yes.
I know, John. Yes.
So we need to go to Weezy's. But I'm not trying to establish what that person's political beliefs are. In fact, if I stay away from their goddamn Facebook... I probably won't ever know. Yeah. Because that doesn't fucking matter. But for some reason, we've now had to decide that that's what matters. Now, listen, there are fine lines eventually, right? You probably, if a guy's lynching people out back and burning crosses on the front of his lawn, we probably don't want to support that guy anymore.
We should probably intervene in some way, shape, or form.
So there is a fine line of the extremes. Yeah. But the fact is that it doesn't fucking matter. And that's the community is one of those things where, and if you are so ostracized in your community, if you are such like the black swan and a duck out of water, then that is the time to go.
Yeah,
because the fact is there is a time to go find your people that you can be happy with.
Right.
Because then at least you're living in a real community that's real. If it needs to be at South Beach, right? If it needs to be in San Francisco, like it's whatever those things are that are going to make you, or if it needs to be in goddamn Alabama.
Yeah, but that's what it is. Is it's again with everything. It's that balance of if you are so who you are and defined in who you are, and the rest of your community ostracizes you and hates you and despises you, and it causes you grief and anxiety to the point that you can't live your life, everybody deserves to have a component of joy, right? But it's finding who you are and finding your people, but also not taking that and running with it backwards and assuming that
absolutely
is
it's don't do what has been done to you.
Be who you are, and that's okay, whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
And let others be exactly who they want to be.
Because and
'Cause that's the
everybody will
component that
check
gets
each
missed.
other.
Right.
And that's what's missing right now.
Yeah. We've almost done 2 hours. It'll be over 2 hours for this
the
podcast.
first part of this podcast was good. The good old days. That's what we should entitle it.
Oh, for sure we'll be doing it. But this was very good. This was a good talk. So this is ooh, that word. I missed that one the other day too.
Culmination.
And a culmination. Why do I want to say it's accumulation?
You want to put "an" in front of it. It's a culmination of.
Did you finally Google that?
I did not. But I'm like 92% positive
So,
it's a culmination.
This is a combination.
There we go.
Of
Combination change.
lots of different things we've talked about before. But I think it is very valid because there just are pieces to where, again, it's the idea of looking back to those good old days.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many things that are super positive.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also just so many things that are super shitty about back in the day.
But it's history.
Amen.
But that's history teachers are awesome because they understand the ebbs and flows.
Yes.
That it's happened forever.
And there's so much. And
everyone wants to act like the world's going like to hell in a handbag, right? Or handbasket.
Handbasket. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. But it literally just pick a point in history and people would have the same argument.
Yeah. I think it's fair.
Yeah.
Let's go to Wheezy's.